The envelope sat on the kitchen table like a ticking bomb. Simone Harper stared at it, her hands trembling so badly she had to grip the edge of the counter. Outside, the September rain drummed against the windows of her Atlanta apartment, but she barely heard it. All she could hear was her own heartbeat, loud and frantic in her ears. 3 weeks ago she'd buried her mother. 3 weeks of crying herself to sleep, of going through the motions at work, of friends bringing casseroles she couldn't eat. 3 weeks of feeling like someone had carved out her insides and left her hollow. And now this. Pastor Graham had handed it to her after the repast, his weathered brown face filled with something that looked like pity. "Your mama gave this to me 6 months ago," he'd said softly. "Made me promise not to give it to you until after she was gone. Said you'd need time to grieve first, but that you needed to know the truth." Simone hadn't opened it then. She couldn't. She'd stuffed it in her purse and driven home in a daze, and for 3 weeks, it had sat on her table, untouched. Every morning she'd look at it before work. Every evening she'd come home and stare at it some more. But tonight, something inside her finally broke. Her hands shook as she picked up the envelope. Her mother's handwriting on the front, "To my precious Simone. The truth I should have told you years ago." The paper felt heavy. Expensive. Like her mother had chosen it carefully, knowing the weight of what it would carry. Simone slid her finger under the seal and pulled out 3 pages of lined notebook paper, covered in her mother's neat cursive. For a moment she just held them, bringing them close to her face. They smelled like her mother's perfume, that old-fashioned lavender scent she'd worn for as long as Simone could remember. "My dearest Simone," the letter began. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone, and I'm so sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you this while I was alive." Simone's vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing herself to focus on the words. "There's no easy way to say this, baby girl, so I'm just going to say it plain. You are not my biological daughter." The room tilted. Simone grabbed the edge of the table, her legs suddenly weak. She read the sentence again. Then again. The words didn't change. "You were born on June 14, 1989, at Grady Memorial Hospital. So was my biological daughter. Somehow, in all the chaos of that day, the babies got switched. I took you home and another woman took home my birth child. I didn't know. For months I didn't know." Simone's breath came in short, sharp gasps. She forced herself to keep reading. "It wasn't until you were 8 months old that I started to suspect something. You looked nothing like me or your father, God rest his soul. Everyone kept commenting on it. She must look like her daddy's side, they'd say. But honey, you didn't look like anyone in either of our families. And there were other things. Little things. The way you'd cry. The birthmark on your shoulder that neither of us had. The texture of your hair so different from mine at that age." Simone's hand went automatically to her left shoulder, where a small strawberry-shaped birthmark sat beneath her shirt. "I went to the hospital. They were dismissive at first, but I pushed and pushed until they agreed to do a blood test. And that's when we found out the truth. You weren't mine. Biologically, I mean. But baby, by then you were mine in every way that mattered. I'd fed you, bathed you, rocked you to sleep every night. I'd memorized every sound you made, every expression that crossed your little face. You were my daughter, blood or no blood." Tears streamed down Simone's face now, hot and fast. The hospital found the other family. The Brooks family. They lived across town. We met. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, sitting across from Natalie Brooks, both of us holding babies who weren't biologically ours. She looked at you the way I looked at the baby she'd been raising, my biological child, Elise. We both knew what we were supposed to do. Switch them back. Give them to their real families. Simone could barely see through her tears, but she kept reading. "But we couldn't do it, Simone. We just couldn't. You were 8 months old. You knew me. You reached for me. And that other baby, Elise, she knew Natalie. She cried when I tried to hold her. The doctor said switching you back would be traumatic for both babies. That at 8 months you'd already bonded with your mothers. That we were your mothers, biology be damned. So Natalie Brooks and I made a decision. We decided to let sleeping dogs lie. We decided that we'd each keep the daughters we'd been raising, and we'd never tell anyone. We agreed never to contact each other again, so we wouldn't be tempted to interfere in each other's lives. We signed papers agreeing not to sue the hospital. And we went our separate ways. I've thought about that decision every single day since. I've wondered if I was selfish. If I robbed you of your real family. If I robbed Natalie of her real daughter. But Simone, you were my real daughter. You were my real daughter. I raised you. I loved you. I taught you to read and tie your shoes and stand up for yourself. I was there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every triumph. That's what makes a mother, baby girl. Not blood. Love. But I know you have a right to know the truth. And I know there's another family out there who might want to meet you. Natalie Brooks. Your biological mother. She's a good woman, Simone. She was kind and gentle, and she was hurting just as much as I was. Her information is at the bottom of this letter. I hope you can forgive me for keeping this from you. I hope you understand that I did it out of love, not deception. You are my daughter, Simone Marie Harper. You always will be. But I also know you're a grown woman now, and you deserve to know where you came from. Whatever you decide to do with this information, know that I love you more than life itself. You were the greatest gift I ever received, switched or not. All my love forever and always, Mama. At the bottom of the page was a name, an address, and a phone number. Natalie Brooks. 428 Moreland Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia. And a phone number with a 404 area code. Simone dropped the letter. It fluttered to the floor as she pressed both hands to her face and sobbed. Everything she knew about herself was a lie. Her mother wasn't her mother. Her family wasn't her family. 36 years of memories, 36 years of identity, all of it built on something that wasn't real. She slid down to the floor, her back against the kitchen cabinets, and cried until she had no tears left. Outside, the rain pounded harder, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the sky. For 2 days, Simone called in sick to work. She couldn't face her students, couldn't stand in front of a classroom and pretend everything was normal when her entire world had shattered like glass. She spent those days wandering around her apartment like a ghost. She'd pick things up, photo albums, her mother's old jewelry box, the quilt Dorothy had made her for college, and stare at them as if seeing them for the first time. Were these even hers? Did she have a right to them? Her phone buzzed constantly. Ruby, her best friend, had texted about 15 times. Her principal had called twice. But Simone couldn't bring herself to answer. What would she even say? How do you explain that you've discovered your entire life is built on a mistake? On the third day, Ruby showed up at her door. Simone Harper, you better open this door right now, or I'm using the spare key you gave me, Ruby called out, pounding hard enough to rattle the frame. Simone dragged herself off the couch and opened the door. Ruby took one look at her unwashed hair, same clothes she'd been wearing for 2 days, eyes swollen from crying, and pushed past her into the apartment. Girl, what is going on? Ruby demanded, setting down a bag of groceries and turning to face her. You haven't answered your phone, you're not at work, and you look like you haven't slept in a week. Simone opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Instead, she just pointed at the letter, still sitting on the kitchen table where she'd left it. Ruby picked it up, her eyes scanning the pages. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock to something like horror. When she finished, she looked up at Simone, tears in her own eyes. Oh, honey, she whispered. That was all it took. Simone collapsed into her friend's arms and cried all over again. Ruby held her tight, rocking her gently like a child. I don't know who I am anymore, Simone choked out between sobs. Everything I thought I knew about myself is wrong. That's not true, Ruby said firmly, pulling back to look Simone in the eyes. You're still you. You're still Simone Harper, the best third-grade teacher at Henderson Elementary. You're still the woman who volunteers at the shelter every Saturday. You're still my best friend who knows all my secrets and loves me anyway. None of that changed. But my mother. Your mother loved you, Ruby interrupted. That letter proves it. She loved you so much that she couldn't let you go, even knowing the truth. That's real, Simone. That love was real. Simone wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. There's another woman out there. Natalie Brooks. My biological mother. What am I supposed to do with that? Ruby was quiet for a moment. What do you want to do? I don't know. Simone's voice was barely above a whisper. Part of me wants to call her right now. Part of me wants to pretend I never read that letter. Part of me is angry at my mama for not telling me sooner. Part of me is grateful she told me it all. I'm a mess, Ruby. You're allowed to be a mess, Ruby said gently. This is huge. This is life-changing. You don't have to figure it all out today. They spent the rest of that day on the couch. Ruby made her eat something, just soup, but it was more than Simone had managed in days. They didn't talk much. Ruby just sat with her, present and solid, a reminder that no matter what else changed, some things stayed the same. That night, after Ruby left, Simone sat at her kitchen table again. She'd retrieved the letter from where Ruby had carefully folded it and set it aside. Now she stared at the phone number at the bottom. She picked up her cell phone. Put it down. Picked it up again. Her thumb hovered over the numbers. What would she even say? Hi, you don't know me, but I'm your biological daughter? It sounded insane. It was insane. But it was also true. Simone's hands shook as she started to dial. She got 6 digits in before panic seized her chest. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. Not yet. She wasn't ready yet. But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she knew the truth. She'd never be ready. Some things you just had to do scared. It took Simone another week to work up the courage. She'd gone back to work, thrown herself into teaching with an intensity that worried Ruby. She stayed late, planning elaborate lessons. She spent her lunch breaks tutoring struggling readers. Anything to avoid thinking about the phone call she needed to make. But every night, she'd come home and see that letter on her table. The phone number seemed to glow in the lamplight, calling to her. On a Friday evening, after her students had filed out of the classroom chattering about weekend plans, Simone sat at her desk and made a decision. She pulled out her phone before she could change her mind. This time she dialed all 10 digits. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Simone's heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Maybe no one would answer. Maybe this was all for nothing. Maybe. Hello. The voice was warm, melodic, with a hint of the South in its vowels. It was the voice of a stranger, but something about it made Simone's chest tighten. Hello. Is this Natalie Brooks? Yes, this is Natalie. Who's calling? Simone's mouth went dry. She'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times in her head, but now every word flew out of her mind. My name is Simone Harper. This is going to sound crazy, but I received a letter from my mother. My mother who just passed away. And she told me. Simone's voice cracked. She took a breath. She told me that I was switched at birth. At Grady Memorial Hospital. In 1989. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She left me your name and number, Simone continued, words tumbling out now. And I know this is probably a shock and I'm so sorry to just call you like this, but I didn't know what else to do. I've been trying to work up the courage for 2 weeks and I needed to know if it was true. If you're my Simone. The word was barely a whisper, but it carried decades of longing. Yes, Simone said, tears already spilling down her cheeks. Oh my God. Oh my God. Natalie's voice broke. I never thought Dorothy promised we'd never. I've thought about you every single day for 36 years. Simone couldn't speak. She just pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. I'm sorry, Natalie said, and she was crying too now. I'm so sorry. I know I gave up my right to. I know Dorothy was your mother. She was a good woman and I know she loved you. But honey, I've prayed for this moment. I've prayed I'd somehow get to meet you just once before I died. She did love me, Simone managed. She loved me so much. And I'm not calling to replace her. I just needed to know. I needed to understand where I came from. Where are you? Natalie asked. Are you still in Atlanta? Yes. I live in Midtown. I'm still on Moreland. Same house I've been in for 40 years. Natalie laughed through her tears. I couldn't bring myself to move. Part of me always hoped you'd come find me someday. They talked for 2 hours. Simone learned that Natalie worked as a nurse at Emory Hospital, that she'd never married again after Simone's biological father died when Simone was 2. She learned that she had a younger biological sister, Janelle, who was 33 and taught high school English. She doesn't know about you, Natalie admitted. I never told her. I didn't know how. How do you tell your child that you have another daughter you never got to raise? How do you want to do this? Simone asked. I don't know what's appropriate. I don't know the rules for something like this. There are no rules, Natalie said softly. We make this up as we go. But Simone, if you're willing, I'd love to meet you. Face to face. No pressure. We can meet somewhere public, take it slow. I just want to see you. To know that you're real and you're okay. Simone's hands trembled. I'd like that. How about Sunday? There's a coffee shop in Virginia Highland. Octane Coffee. Do you know it? I know it. 2 o'clock. Simone closed her eyes. 2 o'clock. When she hung up, she sat in her classroom for a long time, watching the sunset paint the sky orange through the windows. In 2 days, she'd meet her biological mother. In 2 days, everything would change again. She thought of Dorothy, of the letter, of the sacrifice she'd made. I hope I'm doing the right thing, Mama, she whispered to the empty room. But deep down she knew she was. Some questions demanded answers no matter how scary they were. Sunday afternoon arrived wrapped in that perfect October weather, crisp enough for a light jacket, warm enough in the sun. Simone changed her outfit 4 times before settling on jeans and a burgundy sweater. She didn't know why it mattered what she wore. Maybe because first impressions mattered even when they came 36 years late. Ruby had offered to come with her for moral support, but Simone knew this was something she needed to do alone. Still, she texted Ruby when she got in the car. On my way. Terrified. Ruby's response came immediately, you've got this. Call me after. Love you. The drive to Virginia Highland should have taken 15 minutes, but Simone spent an extra 10 circling the block, trying to calm her nerves. Her hands were slick on the steering wheel. Finally, at 2:03, she parked and forced herself to walk toward the coffee shop. Octane was bustling with the Sunday afternoon crowd, college students hunched over laptops, families sharing pastries, couples holding hands across small tables. The smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls filled the air. Simone scanned the room, her heart in her throat. She didn't know what Natalie looked like. Would she recognize her? Would there be some instant connection, some biological pull that told her? Simone. She turned. Standing near a table by the window was a woman in her early 60s, tall and elegant, with silver-streaked natural hair pulled back in a low bun. She wore a rust-colored dress and glasses that magnified dark brown eyes that were currently filled with tears. Eyes that looked exactly like Simone's. Natalie? Simone's voice came out as barely a whisper. They stood there, frozen for what felt like an eternity. Other customers moved around them, oblivious to the magnitude of this moment. Natalie took a tentative step forward, her hand reaching out, then dropping. I'm sorry, Natalie said, her voice thick with emotion. I promised myself I wouldn't make this weird. You're even more beautiful than I imagined. Simone felt tears running down her face. She hadn't even realized she was crying. I look like you. You do, Natalie said, and she was crying too now. You have your father's smile, but those eyes, those are mine. And your grandmother's. She passed 5 years ago, but oh, she would have loved to meet you. The mention of a grandmother Simone would never know sent a fresh wave of grief through her chest. So many people, so many relationships, lost to circumstances beyond anyone's control. Should we sit? Natalie asked gently, gesturing to the table she'd apparently been holding. Simone nodded, not trusting her voice. They sat across from each other, and for a moment, neither spoke. They just looked, taking each other in, searching for resemblances and differences. I don't know what to say, Simone finally admitted. I've thought about this meeting for 2 weeks straight, and now that I'm here, every word I practiced is gone. Me too, Natalie said with a soft laugh. I'm usually good with words. Comes with being a nurse, you learn to talk to people in crisis. But this is different. Can I ask you something? Simone said. Anything. Do you regret it? The decision to let me go? To let Dorothy raise me? Natalie was quiet for a long moment. She removed her glasses and wiped her eyes with a napkin. When she spoke, her voice was steady but heavy with emotion. Not a single day has gone by that I haven't thought about you. I've wondered what you were doing, if you were happy, if you were healthy. I've celebrated your birthday alone every year, lighting a candle and praying for you. So yes, part of me regrets not fighting harder to keep you. Part of me regrets agreeing to that pact with Dorothy. She paused, looking directly into Simone's eyes. But the bigger part of me knows we made the right choice. You were 8 months old, baby girl. You knew Dorothy. You loved Dorothy. Ripping you away from the only mother you'd known would have traumatized you. The doctors told us that. The psychologist the hospital brought in told us that. And when I held you that day when we all met at the hospital to discuss what to do, you cried for Dorothy. You reached for her. And I knew. I knew she was your mama, biology be damned. She was a good mother, Simone said quietly. The best mother. She made sure I knew I was loved every single day. That's all I ever wanted for you, Natalie said. That's why I let you go. Not because I didn't love you, but because I did. They talked for hours. Natalie showed Simone pictures on her phone of Simone's biological father, a handsome man with kind eyes who died of a heart attack when Simone was a toddler. Of her sister Janelle, who had the same smile as Simone. Of Natalie's parents, Simone's grandparents, in front of their old house in Vine City. Simone showed Natalie pictures too of Dorothy, of her childhood, of her students. She told stories about growing up, about becoming a teacher, about the mother who'd shaped her into who she was. I'd like you to meet Janelle, Natalie said as the afternoon shadows grew long. If you're comfortable with that. I told her about you last night. She was shocked, but she wants to meet you. She's always wanted a sister. Simone's stomach flipped. Another sister. Another piece of a family she never knew existed. I'd like that. And there's one more person, Natalie said carefully. Elise. The daughter I raised. Your biological half-sister through Dorothy. She lives in Savannah now, but she comes to visit sometimes. I reached out to her yesterday. She'd like to meet you too when you're ready. The woman who'd been raised by Dorothy. The woman who'd gotten the mother that should have been Simone's. The thought sent a complicated mix of emotions through Simone's chest: jealousy, curiosity, grief. One step at a time, Simone said. One step at a time, Natalie agreed. When they finally stood to leave, Natalie hesitated, then opened her arms. May I? Simone stepped into the hug. Natalie held her tight, and Simone felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't the embrace of a stranger. It was something deeper, something cellular. She could feel it in the way Natalie's arms wrapped around her, in the way she breathed, in the way she whispered, "Thank you for finding me." "Thank you for wanting to be found," Simone whispered back. Simone met Janelle 2 weeks later at a soul food restaurant in West End. Natalie had offered to come, but Simone wanted to meet her biological sister one-on-one without any buffers. She arrived early and sat at a booth near the back, her leg bouncing under the table. The restaurant smelled like fried chicken and cornbread, reminding her of Sunday dinners at Dorothy's house. Everything reminded her of Dorothy lately. The grief came in waves, especially now that she was building this new connection with Natalie. Was she being disloyal? Was Dorothy watching from somewhere, hurt that Simone was embracing this biological family? Simone. She looked up. A woman stood beside the booth, 33, curvy, with locks that cascaded past her shoulders. She wore a yellow sundress despite the October chill, and her smile was cautious but warm. Janelle? That's me. Janelle slid into the booth across from her. Up close, the resemblance was clear. They had the same nose, the same way of holding their mouths. Wow. Mama said we looked alike, but I didn't. Wow. Yeah, Simone agreed, slightly overwhelmed. It's a lot. They ordered sweet tea and took their time with the menu, both clearly trying to figure out how to navigate this surreal situation. So, Janelle finally said after the waitress took their orders, "This is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me, and I once got stuck in an elevator for 6 hours with a man carrying a pet python." Simone laughed despite herself. That's quite a comparison. I'm just saying, I thought that was going to be my wildest story forever. But finding out I have a secret sister who's been alive my whole life? That takes the cake. How do you feel about it? Simone asked carefully. About me, I mean. This has to be strange for you. Janelle was quiet for a moment, stirring her tea thoughtfully. Honestly? Part of me is mad at Mama for never telling me. Part of me is sad about all the years we lost. But mostly? She looked up, her eyes bright. I'm excited. I've always wanted a sister. I begged Mama for one when I was little. And now I have one. Just, 36 years late. I never had siblings at all, Simone admitted. I always wondered what it would be like. They spent the next hour trading stories. Janelle taught English at South Atlanta High School, loved poetry, was recently divorced, and spent her weekends refinishing old furniture she found at estate sales. She talked with her hands, laughed loudly, and had a sharp wit that kept Simone on her toes. Simone told her about teaching 3rd grade, about losing Dorothy, about the shock of the letter. Can I ask you something that might be hard? Janelle said as they shared a slice of peach cobbler. Of course. Do you resent me? For getting to grow up with Mama when you didn't? Simone paused, considering the question honestly. Sometimes, she admitted. Not all the time. But sometimes I think about all the moments I missed. All the memories you have that I don't. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, just regular Tuesday nights watching TV together. Yeah, sometimes I feel jealous. That's fair, Janelle said. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I know it's not my fault, but I'm still sorry you didn't get to have that. The thing is, Simone continued, I did have that. With Dorothy. She gave me all those moments. She was an amazing mother. So I don't know how to feel angry about something that also gave me the best childhood I could have asked for. It's complicated, Janelle said. Everything about this is complicated. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of the restaurant laughter, clanking silverware, music from the speakers filling the space between them. You know what Mama told me last night? Janelle said. She said she used to drive past Dorothy's house sometimes when you were little. Not often, maybe 3 or 4 times over the years. She'd sit in her car down the block and watch you play in the yard. She said she just needed to see you were okay. Simone's throat tightened. Really? She said it was torture watching from a distance, but also the only way she could bear it. Knowing you were happy made letting you go a little bit easier. I had a good life, Simone said softly. Dorothy made sure of that. Then she kept her promise, Janelle said. And that's what matters. They exchanged phone numbers before leaving with promises to meet again soon. As Simone drove home, she felt something loosening in her chest. This could work. These relationships could be built, brick by careful brick. But there was still one more person she needed to meet. Elise. The woman who'd been raised as Dorothy's daughter. The woman who was, in some ways, Simone's mirror image, a life that could have been hers. That meeting, Simone knew, would be the hardest one yet. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Simone found herself sitting in a Starbucks in Savannah, waiting for Elise. The trip down had been spontaneous. Elise had called her directly. Natalie had given her Simone's number, and her voice on the phone had been tentative but warm. "I know this is weird," Elise had said. "But I've been thinking about you nonstop since Natalie told me about you. I'd really like to meet." So Simone had taken a personal day from work and driven the 3.5 hours to Georgia's coast. Now she sat by the window watching tourists wander through the historic district, her coffee going cold in her hands. Elise was late. Or maybe she changed her mind. Maybe this was too much, too fast. Maybe. Simone Harper? She turned. Standing there was a woman who looked nothing like her and yet somehow everything like her. Elise was shorter, fuller figured, with relaxed hair and a face shaped differently than Simone's. But her hands, the way she held them, slightly clasped in front of her, that was familiar. That was Dorothy. "Elise. Sorry I'm late. Traffic on Bay Street is always crazy." Elise sat down across from her, setting down her own coffee. For a moment they just stared at each other. "This is so strange," Elise finally said. "Looking at you and knowing that in some alternate universe, you're my sister and I'm yours." "But we're not sisters," Simone said. It came out sharper than she intended. "No," Elise agreed softly. "We're not. But we're connected in this weird, irreversible way." They were both quiet. The coffee shop buzzed around them, but they might as well have been alone. "Dorothy never told me either," Elise said abruptly. "I found out from Natalie 2 weeks ago. Can you believe that? My whole life I thought I knew who I was. And then I get a phone call saying, 'Hey, surprise, your mother wasn't your biological mother, and also you have a biological sister you've never met.'" "How did you feel?" "Angry. Or confused." Elise laughed bitterly. "I spent 3 days crying. Then I spent another 3 days going through every photo album I have, looking for clues I missed. And you know what? There were so many. I never looked like Dorothy. Everyone always said I had my father's features, but I didn't look like him either. I always felt like I didn't quite fit, and now I know why." Simone understood that feeling. "Did you love her, Dorothy?" "With my whole heart," Elise said immediately. "She was the best mother. Strict but fair. Always in my corner. She came to every school play, every basketball game. She taught me to cook and balance a checkbook and stand up for myself." Her eyes filled with tears. "And I'm so angry at her right now for lying to me my whole life." "Me too," Simone admitted. "I love her. I miss her every day. But I'm also furious that she never told me the truth while she was alive. That I never got to ask her why or tell her how I felt about it." "She was a coward," Elise said bluntly. "I know that's harsh, but it's true. She took the easy way out, leaving us letters instead of having the hard conversations while she was alive." "But she did it because she loved us," Simone countered, though she wasn't sure if she was defending Dorothy or trying to convince herself. "She said in my letter that she didn't know how to tell us." "Love isn't supposed to be selfish," Elise said. "And keeping this secret was selfish." They sat with that hard truth. "Do you resent me?" Simone asked. "For being raised by Natalie instead of Dorothy?" "Yes," Elise said simply. "Is that terrible? I resent that you got to grow up with your biological mother while I didn't. Even though I loved Dorothy. Even though she was a wonderful mother. I still feel like something was taken from me." "I resent you too," Simone admitted. "You got Dorothy's last years. You were there when she got sick. You held her hand when she died. I had to hear about it over the phone because I was away at a teaching conference." "She called for you at the end," Elise said quietly. "Did you know that? In those last few hours when she was barely conscious, she kept saying your name. Both our names, actually. 'Tell Simone I'm sorry. Tell Elise I'm sorry.' Over and over." Simone wiped her eyes. "She had nothing to be sorry for. Didn't she?" Elise challenged. "She made a choice that affected 4 lives, yours, mine, hers, and Natalie's. And she never gave any of us a say in it." "She made an impossible choice," Simone said. "Can you imagine? Being told you have to give up the baby you've been raising for 8 months? That would destroy anyone." "So would finding out your entire identity is a lie," Elise shot back. They were both breathing hard now, emotions running high. But then Elise laughed, a sharp, almost hysterical sound. "Listen to us," she said. "Fighting over a woman who loved us both enough to make an impossible choice. Fighting over mothers and families and who got what. When really we're both just scared and hurt and grieving." "Yeah," Simone agreed, feeling the fight drain out of her. "Yeah, we are." "I don't know how to do this," Elise admitted. "I don't know what we're supposed to be to each other." "I don't either," Simone said. "But maybe we don't have to figure it out today. Maybe we just start with the truth. We're two women who got caught up in something beyond our control. We're not sisters, but we're not strangers either. We're something in between." "Something in between," Elise repeated. "I can live with that." They talked for another 2 hours, trading stories about Dorothy, comparing memories, finding common ground. Elise told her about Dorothy's last days, about how she'd insisted on finishing that quilt she'd been working on, about how she'd made Elise promise to live a full life without regrets. "She was thinking of you," Elise said, "when she wrote your letter. She worked on it for weeks, kept rewriting it. She wanted to get the words exactly right." "Did she write you a letter too?" "She did. She told me the truth about the switch. She told me about Natalie. And she told me that finding you was the greatest gift and the greatest pain of her life." Elise paused. "She loved us both, Simone. In different ways maybe, but she loved us both." "I know," Simone whispered. When they finally parted ways, they hugged briefly, awkwardly. It wasn't the embrace of sisters, but it was something. A recognition. An understanding. As Simone drove back to Atlanta, she thought about what Elise had said. They were something in between. Not family, not quite strangers. Connected by circumstance and biology, and a mother who'd made an impossible choice. Maybe that was enough. December arrived with unseasonably warm weather and the chaos of holiday preparations. Simone threw herself into both decorating her classroom with her students, shopping for gifts, avoiding the gnawing question of where she'd spend Christmas. "You could come to my parents' house," Ruby suggested over drinks one evening. "You know you're always welcome." "I know," Simone said, stirring her wine absently. "But it feels strange. Last year I was with Dorothy. And now? Now you have options," Ruby said. "That's not a bad thing, Simone." But it felt like a bad thing. Natalie had tentatively invited her to Christmas dinner with her and Janelle. "No pressure," she'd said. "But we'd love to have you." Elise had texted asking if Simone wanted to visit Dorothy's grave together. And then there were the ghosts of Christmases past, memories of Dorothy that made Simone's chest ache. The decision was made for her when Natalie called in mid-December. "I have a crazy idea," Natalie said. "And you can absolutely say no. But I was thinking, what if we all spent Christmas together? You, me, Janelle, and Elise. All 4 of us. The women caught up in this situation, trying to make sense of it together." "That sounds intense," Simone said carefully. "It does," Natalie agreed. "But maybe that's what we need. To stop tiptoeing around each other and just face this head-on. Break bread together. Talk about Dorothy. Talk about everything." "I'll think about it," Simone promised. But as Christmas approached, she found herself saying yes. Maybe it was masochistic. Maybe it was healing. Maybe it was both. Christmas morning found Simone standing on Natalie's front porch, holding a sweet potato pie she'd made from Dorothy's recipe. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it when Natalie opened the door. "You came?" Natalie said, her smile radiant. Come in, come in." The house smelled like ham and collard greens and cinnamon. Janelle was in the kitchen, laughing at something on her phone. Christmas music played softly from a speaker. It was warm and welcoming and utterly terrifying. Elise arrived 30 minutes later, looking as nervous as Simone felt. They nodded at each other, a silent acknowledgement of the strangeness of this gathering. Dinner was awkward at first. They were all too polite, too careful with their words. But then Janelle told a story about a disastrous Christmas when she was 12, and Natalie countered with an even worse one, and slowly the conversation began to flow. "Dorothy always burned the rolls," Elise said, laughing. "Every single year. She'd get distracted by something else, and the next thing you know, the smoke alarm is going off." "She did that at Thanksgiving too," Simone added. "I used to set a timer on my phone as backup." "She was an amazing cook otherwise," Elise said. "But those rolls." They laughed together, and for a moment, it felt natural. Easy. Like they'd been doing this for years instead of navigating it for the first time. After dinner, they sat in Natalie's living room, full and drowsy. The Christmas tree lights twinkled in the corner, casting soft shadows across their faces. "Can I say something?" Natalie asked. "Something I've been needing to say since Simone first called me." Everyone nodded. "I've spent 36 years living with guilt and grief. Guilt over letting Simone go. Grief over losing Dorothy's daughter Elise. I've played that hospital meeting over and over in my mind, wondering if I made the right choice. Wondering if I was selfish or selfless. Wondering if I traumatized both of you by agreeing to that arrangement. She looked at Simone, then Elise, her eyes shining with tears. But sitting here now, seeing the women you've both become, I think Dorothy and I did the best we could with an impossible situation. We loved you. Both of you. We gave you stable homes and present mothers and the chance to grow up feeling secure. Maybe that's not perfect, but it's something. It is something, Simone agreed quietly. I spent the first few weeks after finding out angry at everyone, Elise said. Angry at Dorothy for lying. Angry at Natalie for agreeing to the arrangement. Angry at the hospital for being so careless. Angry at the universe for putting us in this situation. She paused, collecting her thoughts. But anger doesn't change what happened. It doesn't give us back those lost years or answer all our questions. All it does is poison the present. So I'm trying to let it go. I'm trying to see this for what it is, a second chance. A chance to build something new. I like that, Janelle said. A second chance. To second chances, Natalie said, raising her glass of sparkling cider. They all raised their glasses and drank. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't without pain. But it was a start. As the evening wound down, Simone found herself on the porch with Elise, both of them wrapped in blankets against the December chill. Thank you for coming, Elise said. I know this was hard. Thank you for suggesting it, Simone replied. I needed this. I needed to see that we can all exist in the same room without it being a disaster. Dorothy would have liked this, Elise said thoughtfully. All of us together. I think that's what she wanted when she wrote those letters. Not for us to forget her, but for us to find each other. Maybe, Simone said. Or maybe she just wanted us to know the truth, and this is what we chose to do with it. Either way, Elise said, I'm glad we're here. Me too, Simone admitted. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the clear winter sky. Inside they could hear Natalie and Janelle laughing about something. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And right now that was enough. January brought a cold snap that froze Atlanta in its tracks. Schools closed for 3 days straight, leaving Simone with unexpected time to think. She'd been avoiding something since this all began, some piece of the puzzle she wasn't ready to examine. The hospital. Natalie had mentioned a retired administrator, Mr. Leonard Davis, who'd been working at Grady Memorial in 1989. He helped us navigate the situation back then, she'd said. If you ever want to know exactly what happened, he might be able to tell you. Simone had filed that information away, not ready to dig deeper. But now, with time on her hands and questions she couldn't shake, she found herself Googling his name. He was still alive, still in Atlanta, listed in the phone book like it was 1985. She called before she could talk herself out of it. Mr. Davis? My name is Simone Harper. I was one of the babies switched at Grady Memorial in 1989. I was wondering if I could talk to you about what happened. There was a long pause. Then, Lord have mercy. I wondered if one of you girls would ever come looking for answers. Yes, child. Come see me. 2 days later, Simone sat in Mr. Davis's modest home in College Park. He was in his 80s now, moving slowly but with a sharp mind and sharper memory. He made her tea and settled into his armchair with a sigh. I've thought about you girls many times over the years, he said. Wondered how you turned out. If your mothers made the right choice. Can you tell me what happened? Simone asked. The whole story. Not just what my mother told me, but everything. Mr. Davis nodded slowly. June 14, 1989. Busiest day we'd had in months. It was chaos, babies being born left and right, nurses running in every direction. Your mothers gave birth within an hour of each other. You and Elise were taken to the nursery at almost the same time. He paused, his face troubled. There was a new nurse that day. Her first week on the job. She got confused with the ID bracelets. Put yours on Elise and Elise's on you. By the time anyone realized what happened, both of you had already been taken to your mother's rooms. They'd already bonded with you. Already fell in love. How did they figure it out? Simone asked. They didn't. Not at first. It wasn't until 8 months later when Dorothy came back, worried that something was wrong. That's when we did the blood test. That's when we discovered the switch. Why didn't the hospital fix it? Simone asked, though she knew the answer. We tried, Mr. Davis said heavily. We brought in psychologists, social workers, lawyers. Everyone had an opinion. Some said switch you back immediately. Others said it would traumatize you more. The hospital was terrified of a lawsuit, of public scandal. This was national news: potential babies switched at birth, lives upended. But my mothers decided to keep us, Simone said. They did. Against all advice, against all pressure, they decided that love mattered more than biology. That you'd already formed attachments, already knew who your mothers were. And legally, the hospital couldn't force them to switch you back. So we drew up paperwork. Both families agreed not to sue. Agreed to maintain confidentiality. Agreed never to contact each other. Did you think they made the right choice? Mr. Davis was quiet for a long time. I was young then. 30 years old, new to administration. I thought they should switch you back. I thought biology mattered more than 8 months. But now... He shook his head. Now I'm old enough to know that there are no right answers in situations like that. Only choices that people have to live with. Did anyone get in trouble? The nurse who switched us. She was fired. The hospital paid out settlements to both families. We completely overhauled our nursery procedures. But that didn't help you and Elise. The damage was done. Simone felt something release in her chest. Hearing the full story, understanding exactly how it happened, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't some cosmic joke or karmic punishment. It was human error, plain and simple. A tired nurse, a chaotic day, a terrible mistake. Thank you, she said, for telling me the truth. You deserve to know, Mr. Davis said. Both of you did. Your mothers should have told you years ago. They did the best they could, Simone said, surprised to find herself defending Dorothy and Natalie. Maybe, Mr. Davis said. But secrets have a way of causing more harm than truth, even painful truth. Simone left his house with a strange sense of peace. The last piece of the puzzle was in place. She knew what happened. She knew why. She knew that no one was truly at fault, just circumstances and choices and the messy reality of human life. That night she called Elise. I went to see Mr. Davis, she said. The hospital administrator from 1989. What did he say? Simone told her everything. When she finished, Elise was quiet for a long moment. A tired nurse, she finally said. That's all it took. One person having a bad day and 4 lives changed forever. Does it help? Knowing? Yes, Elise said. And no. It doesn't change anything, but at least now I understand. There's no villain in this story. Just people making mistakes and trying to fix them. That's exactly what I thought. Simone. Elise said. Yeah. I'm glad you're in my life. I'm glad Dorothy's letter brought us together. I'm still angry about the lies, but I'm grateful for this. Me too, Simone said, and she meant it. February arrived with the promise of spring. Simone's third graders made Valentine's Day cards, their little fingers carefully cutting red construction paper and gluing on googly eyes. 2 of them, Tasha and Bria, both bright but struggling with reading, stayed after class to work with Simone. Miss Harper. Tasha asked as they sounded out words together. How come you seem different lately? Different how? Simone asked, surprised. Happier, Bria chimed in. You smile more. You laugh at my jokes now. Simone realized with a start that they were right. She was happier. Despite everything, despite the grief and confusion and complicated family dynamics, she was lighter than she'd been in months. I guess I'm learning that family can be bigger than we think, she told them. And that's a good thing. Over the past few months, a routine had developed. Sunday dinners with Natalie and Janelle, sometimes joined by Elise when she drove up from Savannah. Coffee dates with Janelle, who was quickly becoming not just a biological sister but a real friend. Long phone calls with Elise, working through their complicated feelings about Dorothy and their shared history. And slowly, imperceptibly, the sharp edges of her grief over Dorothy began to soften. She could think of her mother now without the immediate crush of tears. She could look at photos and smile at the memories instead of just mourning their end. One Sunday in late February, they gathered at Simone's apartment, all 4 of them. Simone cooked Dorothy's famous Sunday dinner: fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread. Natalie brought dessert. Janelle brought wine. Elise brought old photo albums. I thought we could look through these together, Elise said, pulling out 3 thick albums. Pictures of Dorothy, of both our childhoods. I want you to see her, Simone. I want you to know the woman I knew. They spread out on Simone's living room floor like teenagers at a sleepover. Elise narrated the photos: Dorothy at Elise's kindergarten graduation, Dorothy teaching Elise to ride a bike, Dorothy asleep on the couch after a double shift at the post office. She looks tired in this one, Simone observed. She was always tired, Elise said. She worked so hard to give me everything. Sometimes too hard. Natalie pulled out her own albums. Pictures of Simone's biological father, young and vibrant. Pictures of Natalie pregnant, glowing and hopeful. Pictures of an empty nursery, painted yellow, waiting for a baby that would be taken away. I couldn't bring myself to change it for 2 years, Natalie admitted. I'd go in there and just sit, thinking about the baby I'd never get to raise. But then you had me, Janelle said softly. And you saved me, Natalie told her. You gave me a reason to move forward. They compared photos side by side, Simone at 5, gap-toothed and grinning. Elise at 5, serious and studious. Both loved. Both wanted. Both raised by women who'd made impossible sacrifices. We were lucky, Simone said suddenly. I know that sounds strange, but we were. We could have ended up in foster care or with parents who didn't want us. Instead, we got mothers who loved us enough to make the hardest choice of their lives. We were lucky, Elise agreed. Even if it hurt. Even if it was complicated. They talked late into the night. They told stories and laughed and cried. They planned a trip to Savannah to visit Elise. They talked about starting a tradition, these Sunday dinners, rotating between houses, building something new from the fractured pieces of their shared history. I've been thinking, Natalie said as the evening wound down, about Dorothy. About how much she loved you both. And I think she'd want us to do something meaningful. Something that honors her memory and acknowledges what happened. Like what? Simone asked. A scholarship, Natalie said. In her name. For students who've been through trauma or family complications. Who need support and love and someone to believe in them. Dorothy believed in both of you. Let's help her keep believing in others. The Dorothy Harper Memorial Scholarship, Elise said slowly. I love it. We could fundraise, Janelle added. Make it substantial. Really change someone's life. Simone felt tears spring to her eyes. She'd love that. She always said education was the key to everything. Then let's do it, Natalie said. All of us together. For Dorothy. For Elise's mother and Simone's mother and the woman who loved you both. They raised their glasses water this time, since they'd finished the wine, and toasted. To Dorothy. To impossible choices. To found families and second chances. To healing that comes slowly but surely, if you're brave enough to reach for it. As everyone prepared to leave, Janelle pulled Simone aside. Thank you, she said. For being open to this. For giving us a chance. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for welcoming me, Simone replied. I was so scared you'd resent me. Never, Janelle said fiercely. You're my sister. Biology says so, but more than that, I choose it. I choose you. Simone hugged her tight. I choose you too. After everyone left, Simone stood in her quiet apartment, looking at the photos still spread across her floor. 2 lives for women, 1 impossible situation. But somehow, impossibly, they were building something beautiful from it. She thought of Dorothy, of the letter that had started all of this. You were the greatest gift I ever received, Dorothy had written. You were mine too, Mama, Simone whispered to the empty room. And look what you gave me. A whole family I never knew I had. Outside, the February moon hung bright and full. Spring was coming. And with it, new beginnings. 6 months after reading Dorothy's letter, Simone stood in front of a crowd at the Atlanta Community Center. Behind her, a banner read, the Dorothy Harper Memorial Scholarship Fund launch. To her left stood Natalie, elegant in a purple dress. To her right, Elise, confident and composed. And in the front row, Janelle gave her an encouraging smile. Thank you all for coming, Simone began, her voice stronger than she'd expected. We're here today to honor an extraordinary woman. Dorothy Harper was a mother, a postal worker, a church volunteer, and a friend to everyone who knew her. She paused, looking out at the gathered crowd. Ruby was there, beaming. Some of her fellow teachers from Henderson Elementary. Dorothy's old friends from church. Natalie's co-workers from the hospital. A tapestry of communities coming together. But Dorothy was something else too, Simone continued. She was a woman who made an impossible choice out of love. And today we're here to talk about that choice and what it means. She told the story then. All of it. The hospital mix-up. The decision to keep them. The 36 years of secrets. The letters that finally revealed the truth. She watched faces in the audience shift from confusion to shock to understanding. Dorothy Harper and Natalie Brooks made a decision that changed 4 lives, Simone said. They decided that love matters more than biology. That the bonds we form with our children in those first precious months are sacred, regardless of DNA. They decided to keep the daughters they'd been raising, knowing it meant giving up their biological children. Elise stood then, stepping up beside Simone. Some people might judge them for that choice, Elise said, her voice carrying across the room. They might say it was selfish or wrong. But I'm standing here today as living proof that it was the right choice. Dorothy Harper was my mother in every way that mattered. She raised me, loved me, shaped me into who I am. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Simone squeezed her hand. This scholarship is for young people who understand that family is complicated. That identity is layered. That sometimes the truth is messy and painful and beautiful all at once. We want to support students who've faced foster care, adoption complications, family separations, or any situation where their concept of family has been challenged. Natalie stepped forward then. I spent 36 years wondering if I'd made the right choice. Wondering if letting Simone go was the biggest mistake of my life. Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward. But looking at the woman she became, the incredible teacher and person Dorothy raised, I know we made the right choice. Both Dorothy and I gave our daughters the gift of stability and love. And now we want to pass that gift forward. The crowd erupted in applause. People stood, some crying, some smiling, all moved by the story they just heard. Simone felt tears streaming down her own face, but they were good tears. Healing tears. After the formal presentations, after the photos and refreshments and conversations, the four women found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the community center. We did it, Janelle said, slightly awed. We actually pulled this off. Dorothy would be proud, Elise said. She would, Simone agreed. Then she turned to Natalie. Thank you. For making that impossible choice. For letting me go so I could have the life I had. For loving me enough to give me up. Thank you for finding me, Natalie replied, pulling Simone into a hug. For being brave enough to make that phone call. For giving me a second chance to be part of your life. Elise joined the hug, then Janelle, until all four of them were wrapped together, holding each other up. For women bound by circumstance, choice, and the messy, beautiful reality of family. What do we do now? Janelle asked when they finally pulled apart. Now, Simone said, smiling through her tears. Now we live. We honor Dorothy's memory by being the best versions of ourselves. We support students through this scholarship. We keep having Sunday dinners and sharing stories and building this family we've created. And we tell the truth, Elise added. No more secrets. No more hiding. We tell the truth and deal with whatever comes. To truth, Natalie said. To family, Simone added. To second chances, Janelle offered. To Dorothy, Elise finished. They stood together as the evening sun streamed through the windows, painting them gold. Outside, life continued, traffic flowing, people laughing, the world turning. But in this moment, in this space, four women stood together, finally whole. Simone thought of the letter one more time. Dorothy's words echoed in her mind. You were the greatest gift I ever received, switched or not. And Simone finally understood. The switch hadn't been a tragedy. It had been a gift. A complicated, painful, beautiful gift that had given her two families, two histories, two ways of understanding love and belonging. She'd spent months trying to figure out who she really was. Was she Simone Harper, Dorothy's daughter? Was she Simone Brooks, Natalie's biological child? Was she a teacher, a friend, a sister? But standing here now, surrounded by the women who loved her, she realized the truth. She was all of it. Every piece of her story, every relationship, every complicated, messy, beautiful part of her identity. She didn't have to choose. She could be both / and instead of either / or. Ruby appeared beside her, squeezing her shoulder. You did good, girl. We all did, Simone replied. That night, Simone sat alone in her apartment, but she didn't feel lonely. On her phone were texts from Natalie, Elise, and Janelle, already planning their next gathering. On her fridge were photos from the scholarship launch, all four of them laughing, arms around each other, genuinely happy. She pulled out Dorothy's letter one more time. She'd read it so many times the paper was soft, the creases deep. But she read it again, letting the words wash over her like a blessing. All my love forever and always, Mama. I love you too, Mama, Simone whispered. And I forgive you. Thank you for the truth. Thank you for the love. Thank you for everything. She carefully folded the letter and placed it in a special box right next to a photo of her and Natalie from their first coffee meeting, a text thread with Janelle full of inside jokes, and a recipe card Elise had sent her with Dorothy's handwriting on it. These were her treasures now. Her history. Her family. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.